11 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few running backs I will bench this week. The first guy, Saquon Barkley of the New York Giants. It's pretty much been another lost season, in my opinion, here for Saquon Barkley. Reports are coming out that he's trending toward playing in this week, but are you really going to wait till Monday night, obviously, to play Barkley, in my opinion? We know he's had the ankle injury over the last few weeks where he hurt it versus the Dallas Cowboys. Here, Saquon, we haven't seen him since. There was a chance he was going to come back in Week 9. Then he went on the COVID list. So right here, it's just been a nagging injury all season or something up here for Barkley. So the last few games for him before he went down, he was pretty productive. I'll give him that. Week 3 versus Atlanta, 51 rushing yards, a touchdown, 6 catches, 43 yards. And Week 4 at New Orleans, 13 carries, 52 yards, a touchdown, and 74 yards with 5 catches and a touchdown. And then versus Dallas in Week 5, 2 carries, 9 yards, and he got stepped on going out for a pass, and that's where the ankle tweak. So right here, we're already in Week 11. It's a tough matchup at the Tampa Bay Bucks that give up the 12th least amount of fantasy points to running backs on the season. And like I said, it's Monday Night Football. If you're not a Booker owner with Barkley, it's going to be tough to start him because you never know with this guy over the last few seasons. He just can't stay on the field. Maybe he's just too big for the running back position the way he's built, and he goes down easily with injuries. But anyway, with the Monday night game and his injury problems over the last few seasons and a tough matchup, I think it's a recipe for disaster here for Barkley, and it'd be better off to bench him. And think about it, fantasy owners have gone 7 weeks now without playing Barkley, so I don't think it'll be that hard to bench him this week. The next running back I would bench this week is Antonio Gibson of the Washington football team. So Antonio Gibson, he had a nice bounce-back game versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. After from Week 6 to 8, he had single-digit fantasy points. So the last few games here for Gibson, Week 7 at Green Bay, 14 carries, 51 yards, 2 catches, 5 yards. Week 8 at Denver, 8 carries, 34 yards, 3 catches, 20 yards. Then they had the bye in Week 9. And Week 10 versus Tampa Bay, the 2 touchdowns definitely saved them in this one. 24 carries, only 64 yards. 2 touchdowns, 2 catches for 14 yards. But this week here, very tough matchup at the Carolina Panthers that give up the 3rd least amount of fantasy points to running backs on the season. So Gibson, we know he's been dealing with a shin injury pretty much the whole season here. But hey, I'll give him credit that he's playing through a fractured shin for multiple weeks now is Gibson, when most people, they'd be sit out and be on IR for a few weeks. So I give him the credit there. But he just hasn't been the same, obviously, with the injury. But it was good to see him versus Tampa Bay have a big fantasy day after bad 3 weeks, like I mentioned. But this week here at Carolina, they're going to focus in my opinion, at stopping the run and make Taylor Heineke and other players on Washington try to beat him this week. So I just don't see a good ball game for him this week. The next running back I would bench this week is Eli Mitchell of the San Francisco 49ers. So Eli Mitchell, he came off a big game, no doubt about it, in Week 10 versus the Los Angeles Rams on Monday Night Football. But right now, reports are coming out that his finger's banged up a little as Mitchell. And he's got a tough matchup, in my opinion, versus Jacksonville that pretty much clamps down middle of the pack versus running backs. And Mitchell here, he don't catch the ball really out of the backfield. I know he had a couple good string of games from Week 7 to Week 9 after getting single digits in Week 10 versus the Rams. But right here, I don't know if he's 100%. And we saw Jeffrey Wilson get a decent amount of carries as well in this ball game. So right here, I know Mitchell's a good talent. But with the bad finger now, that definitely could be a factor of him gripping the football and taking handoffs as well. He'll probably play in this game. Reports are coming out, but now with the injury and a ball game that I could see get out of hand early where San Francisco brings in the backups mid-third quarter, possibly. I just don't see Mitchell having a huge game and him probably maxing out anywhere from 12 points at most here. So the last few weeks for Mitchell, Week 7 versus the Colts, 107 rushing yards and a touchdown. Week 8 at the Bears, in carries, 137 yards and a touchdown. Week 9 versus the Cardinals, only 8 carries, 36 yards, 5 catches, 43 yards. And Week 10, 27 for 91 versus the Los Angeles Rams. So right here, Eli Mitchell, he's a good talent, no doubt about it. But this week here with the finger injury and with the way the game script could go, I could see the Niners benching guys early if they come out playing like they have over the last few weeks here. So this week, I don't think Mitchell has another good game, and he would be a running back I will bench this week. The next running back is Devonta Freeman of the Baltimore Ravens. So Freeman, he's been getting the majority of the starts and the snaps here over the last few weeks. And now Le'Veon Bell got released a few days ago here by the Ravens. So in my opinion, that's telling me that Latavius Murray is going to come back, and Tyson Williams might have a role in this offense. So Freeman, the last few weeks, he's put up numbers. 7 versus Cincinnati, 4 carries, 14 yards, a touchdown, 3 catches, 25 yards. Week 9 versus Minnesota, 13 carries, 79 yards, 2 catches for 4 yards, and a touchdown. And Week 10 in Miami, just no one on this Baltimore Raven offense did anything. 10 carries, 35 yards, and added 3 catches for 23 yards. So the Bears here, we know they got a pretty good run defense. They give up the 9th least amount of fantasy points to running backs on the season. And right here, Freeman, he's going to get more carries probably. But like I mentioned, I think Freeman now, he's got no Le'Veon Bell in the backfield to deal with. But like I mentioned, I think Murray and Williams are going to get mixed into it. And this is pretty much a 3-back committee, in my opinion, for the most part, over there in Baltimore. So right here, the matchup ain't great. Murray's probably coming back. And this week here, I just don't see Freeman doing more than 7 or 9 fantasy points in PPR league. So I will put him on the bench this week. The next running back, Diontae Harris of the New England Patriots. I know Harris has a great matchup at the Atlanta Falcons here in Week 3. But Harris, he's still not 100%. I know he participated after the concussion in practices with the walkthrough and taking a couple snaps and stuff. But right here, Rashawn Stevenson, there's no way, in my opinion, the Patriots could just sit this guy on the bench and him get no work. I could see a split in this ball game, especially on the short week, especially Harris not 100%. And Harris, he's been pretty solid, no doubt about it this year. But right now, Stevenson, he looked like a great running back in that Week 10 ball game versus the Cleveland Browns. And he had a biggest game than what Harris has matched on the season. So the last few games here, though, for Harris, Week 7 versus the Jets, 14 carries, 106 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 catches, 7 yards. Week 8 at the Chargers, 23 carries, 80 yards, a touchdown. And Week 9 at the Panthers, 15 carries, 30 yards, a touchdown, and a catch for 3 yards before he went out with the concussion. So it's a great matchup on paper. But like I mentioned, Stevenson's going to definitely be in the mix. Brandon Bolden, he's set in our down back role here for the New England Patriots. And right here, I just think it's going to be a 50-50 split with Stevenson and Harris and Bolden mixed in, obviously. So right here, I would bench him. So that's a few running backs I would bench for Week 11 of the fantasy football season.